I'm kind of pissed. This is just gonna be a pure rant of a video because I don't know how, but the Dead by Daylight devs made me hate this patch even though I thought I was gonna love it. This could have been one of my favorite updates to the game of all time, because I've sunk in thousands of hours into Dead by Daylight, and a good portion of that is into Killer, and I'm colorblind, and this has made Killer somewhat insufferable at times, with scratch marks on certain maps being very difficult for me to see, especially from a range. And for the first time in 10 years, they've added a great accessibility option to change scratch mark colors. This is a game changer for me, and I'm sure many others, and I have nothing negative to say about it. The only other thing I can say that's good about this patch is that they reverted some of the horrible changes from the beta build from a few weeks back. I talked about that in a previous video if you're interested in hearing about those. But yeah, so good job behavior on those two things. But that's all the good stuff. The rest is bad, and I mean really quite horrible. First and foremost, the update isn't even available on Xbox. Straight up, it's delayed until further notice with no expected release date, which forces Xbox players to have no crossplay and miss out on all of the new awesome content I'm going to talk about. Of course, I'm being ironic, but seriously, this makes queue times significantly worse for both Xbox players and other platforms, because we're just playing on different versions of the game, which is kind of unprecedented and quite frankly ridiculous. I cannot think of any other game as large as Dead by Daylight running into an issue like this. But this isn't the only thing that has impacted queue times, because as you look more and more into this update, it just gets worse and worse. One of the things that Behavior decided to do is revamp autohaven. Visually, I don't know why, but it looks like this now, which in my opinion, it looks kinda bad, being far too bright, but whatever way you lean, good or bad, I think everyone can agree it's just unnecessary. The game has been plagued with so many other problems. Why are you working on this? Something literally no one has asked for. We are actively in a content drought at the moment because of an initiative to delay content and quote-unquote fix the game. But instead of dedicating time to fixing issues, they decide to visually rework a map that no one has asked for. And you may be thinking, okay, XME DBD, the visual team can't fix bugs. That's for the actual devs to do. This is a whole different department with other responsibilities. But the thing is, there have been hundreds of visual bugs, largely to do with cosmetics and their gameplay, so many clipping, and a plethora of other visual issues, especially after moving to Unreal Engine 5, that I can't defend it. Also, obviously the dev team and the art team are two different entities, but the management has to dedicate time to making sure both of these are running smoothly, which means it's taking priority over other things. But okay, back to the point of autohaven and queue times. When the update released today, they gave autohaven its own queue, making queue times even longer, because now we're not only missing a large chunk of players on Xbox because of the update issue, but also it's splitting the player base on the other platforms that can play with each other into the different queues of autohaven and regular 1v4, which kinda sucks because this is right after an almost 3-week long 2v8, which normally causes queue times in 1v4 to be much higher. So we're gonna end up with a month of long 1v4 queues. And I don't know why you would split the queues when there's already significantly less players able to play the game because you fucked up the Xbox update. Also, a little side tangent here, but speaking of maps and updates, we've waited so long and Swamp hasn't been touched at all. It hasn't been reworked visually or balance wise. They've been promising this for years and years, and it's just been delayed and delayed, and it hasn't even been mentioned in a long time to my knowledge. For context, it is the last of the quote-unquote classic maps to have been touched up, and in its current state, it's just horrible. I don't want to get into specifics because there's so much else I'm covering in this video, but the TLDR is that people hate playing on this map on both Killer and Survivor because it's just outdated. But yeah, let's rework autohaven's visuals, even though this map was updated 3 years ago, and I don't think anyone has complained about how it looked. In comparison, Swamp is actually plagued with gameplay issues, and they keep trying to rebalance it, which just feels like wasted effort, because if it's going to be reworked, all of the things you're doing to the old version of the map are just going to go away. And speaking of things that they're doing to the current version of the map, there are plenty of issues and new ones are being added even in this update. They did some pallet changes, and on Swamp, pretty frequently, a pallet will just spawn with no loop around it. But the pallet changes don't end there, because for context, a few updates ago, many maps were updated to have way more pallets, and a lot of them were way too strong, making it kind of insufferable to play M1 killers. bhvr decided, okay, the community's frustrated, let's get people's feedback and tune it down. And they did, and we're now seeing the results. They decided to absolutely obliterate the ability to play a lot of these loops, making them significantly less safe, turning many of them into 50-50s or even just completely unsafe. I've personally advocated for nerfing maps because some of them are just way too survivor sided, but why are we keeping the high density of pallets and just reducing their strength? Maybe just go back to what worked for years and years and keeping a fair balance of the amount of pallets while keeping their strength, because I don't think anyone enjoys playing bad pallets. The only thing you can do is just chain them together, so like, yeah, there's no fun in looping the killer if you're just going pallet to pallet. People joke about Windows brain because of that. Another thing I want to touch on in this update are the bugs added in this patch, which I'm kind of rushing this video on, so there isn't a ton of coverage as of me talking about it, but the overall consensus is that this update is incredibly buggy, plaguing many killers with frustrating bugs, and also making the game feel very unpolished. From Hunter's hatchets hitting multiple survivors with a single hatchet, to Dead Hard lasting less time than it says, it's frustrating to hear that the technical debt of Dead by Daylight is just getting worse and worse in a time that they've delayed chapters to fix these sorts of issues. Like, not only are you delaying actual content, but you're also prioritizing stuff like reworking Autohaven's visuals, which is something no one is asking for. And the issues aren't getting better in terms of bugs. But hey, it can't get much worse, right? Well, wrong. Because if you thought it ended at just, bugs and poor balancing and maps and stuff, it gets much worse for killers. Because Base Kit Endurance and Haste just got buffed to last 15 seconds. So yeah, in endgame, if someone gets unhooked, you will not be able to kill them by the time they reach a door in the majority of cases. So trying to confirm kills in endgame is much harder on weaker killers, to the point where it's just kind of insufferable. And it gets worse from there, because survivors can now use Sprint Burst up to 3 times in one chase by using the all-new Syringe, which was reworked to be quote-unquote nerfed to remove exhaustion instantly instead of the old version healing you, which I don't know how bhvr didn't realize, but this is a buff, not a nerf. Also, to release some salt in the wound, they also disabled the perks that were gonna be reworked this update. So there's pretty much no new content, a very meh looking map with bad queue times, with plenty of bugs. And in bhvr's defense, I am being a little dramatic. I don't think the patch is like that bad, but I was really looking forward to the colorblind friendly scratch marks, because genuinely that is a game changer for me. But they fucked up in every other regard. It's so hard to even talk about this patch positively, because oh my lord, like every other way is just messed up. But whatever, hopefully I can talk about more positive stuff later. I just started doing Dead by Daylight commentaries and I'm at like 80 subs, so it'd be cool to get to like 100. If you watch this far and you think you'd enjoy more content, maybe a little more polished than this one, I kind of just went super ranty off script, consider subscribing, maybe liking the video, whatever. But other than that, see you later, gamers.